Hello and welcome back to Montana. Like many other homesteading families, not every, but like many, we also homeschool our children. And so that is a really big part of our day-to-day lives. And so today I thought I would share what curriculum we're using, what lesson plans look like for us, what are some of the things that I love about homeschooling, what are some of the things that I struggle with homeschooling, and just kind of get a glimpse into what homeschooling looks like for our family. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Cece. My husband Kirk and I homestead in the big beautiful state of Montana, and I homeschool our two kiddos. I very rarely ever talk about them. We lean a lot more towards privacy for our children, but homeschooling is something that takes a big chunk of my everyday life. And so it's a little hard to show you guys what my life looks like without talking about homeschooling. So first of all, I just wanted to talk about a little bit about how I keep things organized. For the state of Montana, you are supposed to document how many hours a day or per year that you homeschool. And I do not remember off the top of my head how many hours it is. I do not keep track of exactly how many hours. I keep track of what we get done in a day. And then there's other things that we do that can be classified as homeschool. Like at the moment, they are unloading the wood truck. And so they learn skills outside of the classroom. That is a big benefit to homeschooling. Our local superintendent basically requires that at the beginning of every year, we let her know what children we're homeschooling, what grade they're going into, and the physical address in what we live in. I believe legally they are allowed to ask for, I don't know about the superintendent, but the state is allowed to ask for some kind of lesson plans or keeping track of what days you do school. They are allowed to ask for vaccine records. But that vaccine record can literally just be like, we chose not to vaccine our children and sign and date it, and that's your record. And I believe they are allowed to ask to see lessons or proof of work over the last 2 years. So every year when we are done schooling, I just put everything in a box, I label what school year it is, and it gets thrown into the back of the closet somewhere. And then every 2 years I can take that last box out and throw it in the garbage. And just as long as I keep records of 2 years, the last 2 years. So with that being said, I'm just gonna show you guys real quick what I do for lesson plans. I just created my own on Google Documents. So I basically do Monday through Friday, you name, date, and then I can fill in whatever the subject line here that we do. So for an example, this is this week's lesson plans that we've got started. We start here with the subject. What did they get done? This evening we have a 4-H meeting, so I'm including that on the bottom. And then I just keep it in this folder, and you can see, there's new lesson plans, there's past lesson plans, and that way this also will get emptied out at the end of every year and thrown in with the books of records. Next up is curriculum. Curriculum can be a little bit of a struggle to figure out what works best for your family. My understanding is there's 2 different types of learning skills. There's one what they call linear, where they introduce a new idea and they just move through on more of a straight line. And then circular or spiral is just like it sounds. They introduce a new idea, and then they introduce another idea, but then they circle back around and they're making sure that you're catching it as you're moving forward. And the first curriculum that I had chose was more of a linear, and I did not realize that. And so one of my kiddos basically was not able to retain anything that they were learning, and so they were really behind in reading. And so by the time I changed curriculums, that kiddo was about a year and a half behind in reading, which is not the end of the world. They catch up pretty quickly. So I changed to a different curriculum that is more known as a spiral. And it's a pretty well-known common curriculum within the homeschooling community, and it is called The Good, and the Beautiful. And this is just a simple sample of a math book, and they have the beginnings of a lesson, so you're learning the new concept, and then you practice that concept, and then you have a page of review. So every lesson will end with a page of review. And that does not seem to change what grade level you are in. You have the lesson, you have like the practicing the lesson, and then you will have, you know, the review. Yeah, again, so the review is them going over things that they have learned in the past. They do have units, so oftentimes the review will be a lot on what was in that unit, but every now and then they will go back to, like, let's say we're in unit 2, and everything that's been learned in unit 2 will be in the review, but every now and then they'll pull something out of unit 1 to throw in there and just make sure that the kiddos remember. And so they also have some video teaching, especially once you get towards the middle, upper grade levels. They, at least for math, that my oldest can go on the laptop, go on the app, and actually have a teacher teaching him the math lesson. And then it is still written out at the beginning of the lesson, so if he struggles with it, I can kind of read the lesson to him then. And then there's, you know, language arts. They push a lot of reading, which I think is great, but both my kiddos are behind in reading. Both my kiddos struggle with reading, and so oftentimes I don't push that as hard because they get frustrated and burned out. The other nice thing about the Good and Beautiful is they do have handwriting. One of my kiddos is in the introduction to cursive, which is really nice, but this is a younger one where they slowly make them learn how to write their letters smaller and smaller and go that route. I also use them for science. This was one thing at first I didn't think I was going to like, but I actually really like it. You can buy units that actually goes through 3rd grade through 8th grade. The upper grades, you buy the workbook, and it's more work. The younger grades, you buy a workbook. You buy a workbook as well, but it's not as in-depth and as detailed. So you can go as detailed or in-depth as you want, depending on your grade level. And because my kiddos are only about 1 grade apart from each other, this is pretty easy for me to do because I can just read the lesson, because both of them aren't reading very well, and we can go over it together as a class or as a family, and then they will do their part in the workbook. And the fun thing about this is they have a whole bird display in the living room. Every time we get a new vocabulary word, that vocabulary word gets cut out and put on the wall. Anytime there's, you know, different activities that they need to do, it then gets to go on the wall. So, you know, I don't know if I would cut out this page, but if we wanted to, this page would end up going on the bird wall. It's all about immigration. So that's what we do. I chose to go away from the Good and Beautiful to do history. And so let me introduce you what we're doing for history. This history was a social media influence. It is from the Tuttle twins. A lot of people who are homeschooled are a little bit more familiar with the Tuttle twins, and I've had multiple people ask me to let them know what they think about it. They advertise that they give facts on history and not just like opinions, because they feel like a lot of history is based on people's perspective and opinions. And that's kind of why I wanted it, because I wanted true facts and not somebody's leaning one way or the other political view on how they write the history books. And they claim that they are not like that. They are. They are. Especially at the end of a lesson, they will have, oftentimes they will have a little bit talking about the author's point of view, or a little bit from their, let me see if I can find one at the end of a lesson. And I was a little sad about that. Yeah, thoughts from the author. And he very much so gives his opinion on it. And just the way he asks questions, it is not non-biased. So this one's a little, I don't know if I'll order from them again. I really, really wanted to like them, and they did not meet my expectations. It is written in a story form, so it holds the kids' attention a lot better, but it's very hard for kids who have not been exposed to history to dive into this without having any exposure to history, because it's kind of already assumed that they know some things. And this is supposed to be advertised from like being okay as, you know, the first history book that anybody's ever exposed to. So I do like that it's in story form and it's a lot easier to understand. I do not like that I was under the impression that it is not biased one way or the other, and I feel like that part of it is not true. So I probably won't, we'll finish this book, but I will probably go back to Good and Beautiful for history. I shouldn't say go back, I will use Good and Beautiful history. I believe they just redid their history program, and so next year they will have like a history #1 family unit ready to go. It is one of their more expensive ones, so I think it's pretty detailed, pretty in depth, but I'm kind of okay with that. So I'll see what that one's like. Again, you know, some people just use YouTube University for science and history. Some people use curriculums. A lot of people do unschooling, homeschool. I chose not to do that. I wanted to actually do a curriculum and follow a curriculum, mostly because I needed that organization. We do also do art. I got them it was through the Good and Beautiful as well, and because we were doing birds for science, we went ahead and did a bird drawing. It's more of a cartoon type of birds to draw, but that's okay. So they do art every day. We are a Christian Bible believing family, and so they watch a little devotion every morning for their Bible class. And then I just add on extra things here and there. You know, some of the kids are starting to learn how to make homemade pizza with me. That all gets counted in as school. And so that is the good thing, talking about some of the good things and the bad things of homeschooling. They are exposed to way more life circumstances that they get to be part of. We live pretty far from town, so I don't have to worry about getting them up, getting them ready for school, getting on the school bus, being exposed to all the lovely germs that go along with it. I get to be in control of what they're learning. If we need to slow down on something and do a lot of reviewing because I'm noticing one of the kiddos isn't quite getting it, you know, that is the benefits. Some of the hardships is figuring out how your child learns. Also figuring out that one of my kiddos had a hard time seeing, and so now that kiddo wears glasses. And because of that, that contributed to slower reading because he couldn't see the letters. They were wanting to blur together. The other thing is I am with my kiddos 24/7. And sometimes that is a beautiful thing. And sometimes if you're a mom, you absolutely know what I'm talking about, that sometimes you need a break from your kids. I love them, but sometimes I need a break. And it's a lot harder to have a break when you're with them all the time. There's also times that I feel like by the time we are done doing school, we get lunch done, I need a little bit of a recharge in the afternoon because teaching can be hard on me too, that everybody just kind of needs to take a break and kind of have a breather. And then I haven't touched any of the housework yet. And the kiddos are still at the age where there's a lot more hands-on. As they get older, they'll be able to do a lot more of their schooling on their own. But right now they are still at the age where I need to be with them the whole time they're doing school. And so again, that's amazing, but that also takes a lot out of my day. So I think we're going to continue to homeschool. Kind of every year we kind of go over it and say, is this what we want to do? And so far every year we're like, yep, this is what we want to do. Once they get into the upper grades, I don't know. We're going to just take it year by year. And I may end up changing curriculums as they get older. You know, we're very much just take it year by year and continue to see what happens and how it works out. But I would say for our family, it is a priority, even though it's not necessarily something that fills me up and I don't love teaching. It is a priority. I love that the kids get to be home with me most days. I love that I get to be in control of what they're learning. I also love that they get to see things, day-to-day life, stuff that they probably wouldn't be able to see if they were gone from home 5 days a week. But it is a lot more work on my shoulders to make sure that they are learning and I'm meeting them where they are and adjusting their learning and adjusting how fast we move and all the things. So anyways, hope that just gives you guys kind of an overview if you're thinking about homeschooling and wanted a complete honest opinion about it. I hope this helps you out. And if you're also a homeschooling mom, give me a thumbs up so I know that I'm not the only mama going through the trenches some days. It is worth it, but there's trenches some days. So anyways, I hope you guys have a great one. Next week, I am hoping to show you guys what it would look like to cook with freeze-dried food if the power truly went out. So stay tuned for that one.